Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are going way beyond finding some peace and quiet. We're going to explore silence,
Yes.
but specifically the connection between silence and spiritual growth.
That's right.
Have you ever felt like the world is just too loud?
Oh, absolutely.
Like it's just so loud it's hard to think straight?
All the time.
Well, today we're going to figure out why that happens and what we can actually do about it.
I think it's fascinating how much we all underestimate the impact of sound.
Really?
I mean, we are just bombarded
Yeah.
with noise constantly. Traffic, our phones, music, people talking.
Yeah.
It's like our brains never get a break.
Right. And for this deep dive, we're going to be looking at this article from the Spiritual Seek website.
Okay.
It's called The Importance of Silence in Spiritual Centering While Living in a Noisy World.
Catchy.
Yeah. So I'm curious, like what happens when our own inner voice is constantly competing with all that external noise? What's going on beneath the surface?
Well, I think all that sound, all that constant sound can really become a barrier between us and our inner selves.
Oh, interesting.
You know, imagine trying to have a heart-to-heart with a friend at a rock concert.
Oh, yeah.
It's nearly impossible to hear them,
Yeah.
let alone understand the nuances of what they're saying.
Right.
And that's what's happening internally. All that noise creates mental clutter.
Huh?
It clouds our judgment. It can even make us less aware of our own needs and desires.
So it's like our internal compass gets all scrambled.
Yeah.
What does that actually mean for someone who's listening who might not be familiar with, what that term means?
I think it means we lose touch with our intuition, with our values, with our sense of purpose. You know, we end up reacting to all these external stimuli rather than making choices that are aligned with who we truly are.
Yeah.
And that can lead us to feeling scattered, overwhelmed, or like we're not living authentically.
The article also mentions that silence itself can be kind of unsettling for some people.
Oh, absolutely.
It can even bring up all these unresolved issues or insecurities that we might normally avoid.
For sure.
Why do you think that is?
It's like suddenly being alone in a dark room. All those things that we push down or distract ourselves from come rushing to the surface. Silence forces us to confront our inner world without any escape routes.
It makes sense, right? Like our brains are so used to that constant distraction that when it's gone, we just don't know what to do with ourselves.
Yeah.
We start to feel all those things we've been trying not to feel.
Yeah.
But this article is suggesting that this discomfort, like that discomfort, that could be an opportunity in disguise.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Instead of fearing silence, what if we embrace it as a path to introspection and personal growth?
I like that.
Yeah.
Shifting the perspective from fear to opportunity.
Yeah.
But how do we put that into practice? How do we make space for silence in a world that feels determined to keep us plugged in and on and going?
Well, the article suggests a few practical techniques. One is creating what they call sacred spaces.
Oh, okay. So like a quiet corner in your home, maybe with a comfy chair and some soft lighting. What else?
Yes, exactly. A spot that's completely dedicated to peace and reflection.
Okay.
It could also be somewhere out in nature. A park bench, under a favorite tree, a quiet spot by the water.
I have a spot like that. A little clearing in the woods near my house. Whenever I'm feeling overwhelmed, I go there to just sit and listen to the sounds of nature.
Ah, that's lovely.
It's so grounding.
Yeah.
This article also mentions mindfulness practices.
Right. Things like meditation and deep breathing exercises. Those can be incredibly powerful tools for cultivating silence internally.
I've dabbled in meditation a little bit, but
Yeah.
I'm always curious, how does focusing on your breath actually quiet the mind?
Sure.
Is there like a scientific explanation for that?
I mean, when we focus on our breath, what we're doing is shifting our attention away from the constant stream of thoughts.
Oh, okay.
And we're bringing it to a single point of focus.
Interesting.
And this actually interrupts the cycle of mental chatter and allows our minds to settle. And studies have shown that meditation can actually change brainwave patterns,
Really?
promoting relaxation and reducing stress.
Wow. So it's not just some like mystical thing. There's actual science behind it.
That's right.
What are some of the other techniques that the article suggests?
Well, journaling is another valuable practice. Putting your thoughts and feelings down on paper, it can help you process them and gain clarity, especially in moments of quiet reflection.
So it's like having a conversation with yourself, but on paper.
Exactly.
Sometimes things become a lot clearer when you write them down.
Yeah.
Okay, what are the last two techniques?
Let's see. Nature immersion, which we touched on earlier.
Okay.
And a digital detox.
Yeah. Yes.
Spending time in nature allows us to connect with a different kind of silence.
Yeah.
The stillness, the vastness of the natural world. And then reducing our reliance on technology can minimize distractions from notifications and just that constant barrage of information.
So it's about consciously creating boundaries between ourselves and the digital world.
Exactly. It's about choosing to unplug and engage with the world around us in a more present and mindful way. Now, there was one section in this article that I thought was quite interesting, the "Are you hypersensitive to noise?" quiz.
Oh, yeah, that caught my eye too. I love a good self-assessment quiz. What did you think of it?
It's really just a quick check-in to see how you respond to different types of noise.
Okay.
For example, how bothered are you by barking dogs or loud cars or people talking loudly on their phones?
You know what? I was actually surprised by how much some of those scenarios actually bothered me.
Mm-hmm.
It made me realize I'm probably more sensitive to noise than I thought I was.
And you know what I found fascinating was the article doesn't actually reveal the scoring system or the different sensitivity profiles right away.
Mm-hmm.
They encourage you to actually go to their website to find out more.
That's a clever way to, like, pique your curiosity
Right.
and get you to explore further.
Yeah. Well, I think I'll have to take that quiz later and see where I fall on that spectrum.
Yeah, it's fun.
It definitely makes you think about how differently we all experience sound.
It certainly does, and it kind of speaks to the larger point that our relationship with sound is highly individual and can have a really profound impact on our overall well-being.
It seems like we often just underestimate how much our environment, especially the soundscape, that we're constantly immersed in, can affect our mental and emotional state.
Absolutely. I mean, we adapt to the constant noise without even realizing the toll it might be taking on our inner peace. It's like living in a city with constant air pollution.
Yeah.
You might not notice it at first, but it's affecting your health nonetheless.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
It highlights how we can become desensitized to our surroundings, even when they're subtly undermining our well-being.
Yeah.
So this deep dive is really about rediscovering the power of silence.
Not just as a break from the noise, but as a vital component of our spiritual growth.
Precisely. It's about understanding that silence isn't just the absence of sound. It's a space for reflection, for connection, for deeper understanding of ourselves and the world around us.
It's like hitting the pause button on all that external input so we can finally tune into our own internal frequency. But what does that actually look like in practice? And what benefits can we expect when we actually start incorporating more silence into our lives?
That's a great question, and we'll delve into those details right after a quick break. When we create that space for silence, we open ourselves up to a whole new level of awareness.
Really?
It's like we've been staring at a screen all day, and then we finally step outside and look up at the vastness of the night sky.
You know, it does feel like silence expands our perspective in a way. Like we're able to see things more clearly and from a wider vantage point.
Exactly. We start to notice things we might have missed before, like subtle feelings or intuitive nudges, or even creative sparks that get drowned out in all the noise.
It makes me think of that saying, still waters run deep. It seems like a similar principle applies to silence. Like there's a depth and richness beneath the surface that we can only access when we become still ourselves.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And when we create that inner stillness, we often find that we connect with something larger than ourselves. It could be a sense of peace, a feeling of interconnectedness with all things, or even a deeper connection to our own spirituality.
So it's like silence allows us to tap into a source of wisdom and guidance that's always there, but often gets drowned out by the noise of everyday life.
Precisely. And that's why cultivating silence is so essential for anyone on a spiritual path. It's not just about finding peace and quiet. It's about creating the space for profound personal growth and transformation. It's about connecting with our true selves, our purpose, and the deeper meaning of our lives.
If you're feeling lost or overwhelmed or disconnected from your spiritual center, this deep dive is a call to action. It's time to start inviting more silence into your life.
And remember, it's a practice. It's not about achieving some perfect state of silence all the time. It takes time and effort to cultivate, but the rewards are immeasurable.
One of the biggest takeaways for me is that we have a choice. We don't have to be victims of the noise.
Right.
We can consciously choose to create moments of silence throughout our day.
Absolutely. It's about reclaiming our power and recognizing that we have more control over our environment than we often realize. We can turn off the TV, put away our phones, step away from the computer, and simply be present in the silence.
And even if it's just for a few minutes each day, those moments can make a world of difference in how we feel and how we experience the world. It's like hitting the reset button on our minds and our spirits.
It's like clearing the static so we can hear our inner voice more clearly. You know, the article doesn't really explore this, but I'm curious to get your perspective on something. Is there a difference between the silence we find in nature versus the silence we create in our homes or through meditation?
That's a great question. I do think there are nuances to silence. The silence of nature often has a quality of stillness and vastness to it. It can feel grounding and expansive at the same time. It's like you're part of something much bigger than yourself.
Exactly. There's a sense of awe and wonder that comes from being in nature, surrounded by the silence of trees and the whispers of the wind. It's a different kind of silence than what we experience in a quiet room.
Yeah. And the silence we cultivate through meditation, that feels more focused and introspective.
Yeah.
It's a silence that allows us to observe our thoughts and emotions without judgment, to become aware of the inner workings of our minds.
It's like we're training our minds to become quieter, more peaceful, more spacious.
And even the silence we create by simply turning off the TV or putting down our phones can be incredibly refreshing. It's like giving our minds a break from all the constant stimulation, like a digital detox for our ears.
It's amazing how much calmer and more centered we feel when we simply reduce the amount of noise in our lives. But it's important to remember that silence isn't just about the external noise. Sometimes the loudest noise is the chatter in our own minds.
Oh, that's so true. Our thoughts can be incredibly noisy, especially when we're stressed, anxious, or overthinking.
And that's where practices like meditation and mindfulness can be so helpful. They teach us how to quiet the mind and create a sense of inner peace, even amidst the chaos of daily life.
It's like having a portable sanctuary.
Yeah.
That we can access anytime, anywhere, a space of quiet within ourselves that we can return to whenever we need to feel grounded and centered.
I love that imagery. It reminds me that peace isn't something we have to find. It's something we cultivate within ourselves.
So even though we live in a noisy world, we're not powerless against it. We have the ability to choose silence, to create spaces of peace and quiet, and to cultivate inner stillness.
And that's the key takeaway I hope listeners will remember from this deep dive. It's a practice, a conscious choice we make each day to prioritize our well-being and create a more harmonious relationship with the world around us.
Beautifully said. And, it's interesting to think about how silence is often seen as passive, but it's actually quite active. It requires effort and intention to create those spaces of quiet in our lives. It's not something that just happens, it's something we choose.
That's such an important point. It's like we're so used to equating action with noise, with busyness, with constant stimulation. But true action can also be found in stillness, in reflection, in listening to our inner wisdom.
It's like the saying, in the stillness lies the dance. There's so much movement and energy happening beneath the surface.
Exactly. And that's where the real magic happens, in that space between the notes, in the quiet moments between the thoughts. It's where creativity blossoms, where insights emerge, where we connect with our deepest selves.
And sometimes those moments of silence can be the most profound and transformative experiences of our lives.
They can be the moments where we connect with our true selves, where we find clarity and inspiration, where we discover our purpose and our path.
It's like silence allows us to step out of the noise of the world and into the symphony of our own souls. A symphony that's always playing, but that we can only hear when we quiet the external noise and tune in to the music within.
And that's a beautiful way to end part 2. Let's take a moment to reflect on that before we move on to our final thoughts.
Yeah, that imagery of stepping into the symphony of our own souls, that really resonates with me. It's like silence gives us the space to hear our own unique melody. The one that kind of gets lost in all the cacophony of the world.
Yes. And as we wrap up this deep dive into silence, I want to leave you with this final thought-provoking point.
Okay.
In a world that's constantly telling us to consume more, do more, be more, silence allows us to simply be.
It's so true. It's such a powerful reminder to just be present in the moment, without judgment, without striving, without needing to fill the space with anything other than our own presence. Sometimes it feels like we've just forgotten how to just be.
It's true. We're so used to achieving, constantly seeking external validation that we forget to just be. And in that state of simply being, we discover a depth of peace and contentment that's beyond anything we could have imagined.
So I think this is a good challenge for our listeners. Make a conscious effort to invite a little more silence into your life this week. Even if it's just for a few minutes each day. Turn off the screens, put away the distractions, and simply be. You might be surprised by what you discover.
And remember, silence isn't about achieving a state of perfect quiet. It's about creating space for yourself, for your thoughts, for your spirit to breathe. It's about finding that delicate balance between the noise of the world and the stillness within.
It's a journey, not a destination. And we're all in this together, navigating the complexities of modern life and rediscovering the profound power of silence.
So until next time, may your journey be filled with moments of profound peace and quiet. May you find the stillness within and connect with the symphony of your soul.